Brandis, the White House and Democrats are out pushing for President Joe Biden's American Jobs Plan, but Republicans are pushing back, saying the proposal is light on infrastructure and heavy on items from Democratic wish lists. And joining us now to talk about that and much more are Congressman Mike Quigley, a Democrat from Chicago, Congressman Krishnamurthi, a Democrat from Schaumburg, and Congressman Rodney Davis, a Republican from Taylorville. Welcome all of you back to Chicago tonight. Congressman Davis, I want to start with you on this infrastructure bill. You've said on this program in the past you've met with the president and the vice president on infrastructure, but you disagree with the approach that House Democrats and Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi is taking here. Are Republicans at the table on this at all?
Well, Republicans have been at the table. We're more than willing to talk about negotiations when it comes to true infrastructure investment. As you mentioned, I was in a meeting with President Biden, Vice President Harris, Secretary Buttigieg just a few weeks ago. We implored the administration to do not use the reconciliation process and make this partisan. And it seems to me that may not be the administration's approach, but it seems to me they might have been pressured by Leader Schumer and Speaker Pelosi to take a partisan route, which is only going to cost more and give us less infrastructure investment.
And Congressman Quigley, the Senate parliamentarian ruled that the upper chamber can use the reconciliation process on this, even though they already did use the reconciliation process on the COVID bill. Is that the only way you believe that this bill, this infrastructure plan, will pass?
I think if you need it, go ahead and use it. I mean, if the Republicans want to dance, let's go. Let's go big on infrastructure. We're getting outspent 3-1, 4-1, 5-1 by our competitors. We're $3 trillion down. My argument is we can't go small. And if the Republicans don't want to go with a significant package, we'll use any process we have to.
And Congressman Krishnamoorthi, Congressman Davis talked about the bill being light on infrastructure, supposedly, and there are things that wouldn't be considered traditional infrastructure, like mass transit, roads, and bridges, like $400 billion for home-based care, for example. Why is that considered infrastructure?
Well, I think that right now, especially during the pandemic, we learned that our healthcare infrastructure is not very good, and I think that one of the reasons where we are is that we have to upgrade various aspects of our healthcare infrastructure. But there are all kinds of parts of the infrastructure package that my Republican colleagues hate, such as upgrading the electrical grid so that we can finally move to a renewable energy economy. They don't like the clean drinking water aspect of this infrastructure package so that we can replace lead pipes and allow all children to drink clean water. They also don't like the fact that we have a high-speed internet as part of this infrastructure package. But we've learned the hard way during the pandemic that whether it's telemedicine or e-learning or working from home, all people, whether you live in a rural area or an urban or suburban area, deserve access to high-speed internet. So we welcome the debate, and I look forward to it.
And Congressman Davis, part of the proposal is a hike in the corporate income tax rate from 21% to 28%. And just this afternoon, Amazon founder Jeff Bezos came out in support of hiking the corporate rate. And this comes as, we see dozens of major businesses paying $0 in taxes in 2020, including Nike, FedEx, Dish Network. Should these corporations be paying taxes, especially with government borrowing so much and 2020 being such a difficult year?
I can see why the blue-collar workers finally flipped to voting Republican. It's because my colleagues on the other side of the aisle want to continue to put them and the companies they work for at a competitive disadvantage. We had historic economic growth because we made our tax code more globally competitive, and we were able to bring jobs back to America instead of seeing American companies ship them overseas and still pay no taxes. Now, if my friends want to talk about infrastructure investment, I'm more than willing to do that. I've got a record of bipartisan infrastructure packages that have gone through the committee that I serve on. But in the end, spending $50 billion to stand up another agency within the Department of Commerce and only spending $42 billion on upgrading our locks, dams, waterways, ports, and airports, that's not infrastructure. That's growing government. We all want broadband expansion. We want to make sure that that money goes to actually get to the last mile. But in the end, a proposal that spends more on electronic vehicle charging stations than it does on rural broadband expansion is not what my constituents want.
Congressman Quigley, it's not just Republicans that have come out not so hot for that corporate tax expansion, but also Senator Joe Manchin, a conservative Democrat from West Virginia. Is there going to have to be negotiation on that rate?
Hey, negotiations are fair game. But the fact of the matter is, under this proposal, the vast majority of Americans, clearly the blue-collar Americans that Rodney was talking about, aren't going to have any change. In large part, this is paid for by repealing what was, I would argue, a disastrous tax plan in 2017, which did very little to grow the economy and actually increased our debt about $1.5 trillion over a 10-year period.
Let's hear from President Biden's press secretary, Jen Psaki. She said he's hoping that the infrastructure plan can pass on a bipartisan basis. Take a look.
Less than a week after he announced the American Jobs Plan, our focus is on engaging with Democrats and Republicans, with staff, with committee staff, inviting members to the White House next week. And we are encouraged by some of the statements that have been made about components of the package.
Encouraged by some statements, but it still doesn't look like bipartisan buy-in at this point. The Congressman Krishnamoorthi, are there any other points of negotiation and compromise that the two parties can come to on this?
I hope so. And I heard Congressman Davis's bark as he was talking about his position on the issues. And I think he was objecting, just as every cat, dog, and American will be objecting to the Republicans saying no, no, no to an infrastructure plan, and using the filibuster to basically prevent us from making progress on this vital area. We are open to negotiations on everything at this point, and I hope that we can negotiate whether it's the package with regard to locks, dams, and dredging our rivers, whether it's upgrading our internet capacity, or whether it's putting electric vehicle charging stations so that we can finally have more electric vehicles on the road and people aren't worried about running out of juice as they're traveling across the state of Illinois. But it can't be a position of just filibustering anything that comes out of the House and preventing real progress, because at the end of the day, if we don't do this, it's not like the Chinese aren't going to upgrade their infrastructure on a continual basis and basically eat our economic lunch.
All right, well, we're going to leave it there for now. We'll be back in just a second. We'll be joined by the Congress members later in the program to discuss safety on Capitol Hill and voting rights. But first, our thanks to Representatives Mike Quigley, Raja Krishnamoorthi, and Rodney Davis. Thank you very much.